Oh, wait, what did I just do? I don't know what I hit. All right, we're on Facebook Live now. What's happening? How you going? How's it going, wrestling world?
Good. It's a little slow. Oh, you're talking to the wrestling world, not me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm here talking with my man, Nick Brascetta. Just like the Italian bread, I had to figure out how to say it the right way. I actually had Kevin send me like a breakdown. He's funny.
Pronunciation.
Yeah. Anyway,
tricky
I'm
one.
Ohio State champ at St. Paris Graham High School under the great Jeff Jordan. 3-time All-American at Vodtech. 3-time ACC champ at 2 different weight classes. And a 2016 NCAA placer, 3rd to be exact. And now he is in Maryland, the current assistant coach there. How are you, sir? First, talk a little bit about how this has affected kind of your off-season stuff, and then welcome. And then how is it being in the ACC, but on a different team?
Yeah, well, we're not in ACC anymore, so Big Ten, obviously. So big change there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See what I don't. My whole life they've been ACC.
Yeah. So I mean, I competed against plenty of Maryland teams when I was in college, and in the past, I think this was probably our 6th year in the Big Ten.
Is it just wrestling, or is it?
No, the whole school.
Baseball, the whole school.
Whole school, yeah. So we made a big shift, and that was back when Rutgers. I guess I shouldn't say we. I wasn't here at the time. I was actually still competing, but Rutgers and Maryland both joined the Big Ten. So now we're at 14 teams at least for wrestling.
Wow.
So yeah, I think it's been a tough transition, I guess, for obviously a little bit. I wasn't here the whole time. This is just my first year coaching at Maryland. Coach Clemson, the head coach, Alex Clemson, got hired. He was the head assistant at Missouri for 5 years, coached plenty of, NCAA champs and plenty of really good dudes. So he took the job. Literally almost a year to the day I got hired. So it was about 3 days ago to the year. So I think part of that shift was for a reason. I think numbers don't lie. Obviously, you look back at some of the past results that Maryland had as a school in the Big Ten after the shift, and they weren't great. I mean, there's no beating around the bush. And so I think change was obviously necessary. And that's why we were brought in a little bit. And yeah, I mean, plenty of success before that with some really good teams in the ACC. I know Maryland won ACC's my freshman year when I was in college, and it was at Chapel Hill. And then that was with Coach McCoy. And then before that, they had really, really good teams with Coach Pat Santoro, who's now at Lehigh. So they were a top 10 finish, and I think it was 2010, I want to say. And so, plenty of history in terms of wrestling, a really good area in terms of geography for wrestling, close to some really good states with New Jersey and New York, Pennsylvania. Ohio is relatively close. Maryland in-state, plenty of good guys at some private schools in the area, really an up-and-coming state, if I had to say. And so it's a good place, and so I think there's good things happening, plenty of change. And then you get struck with obviously the virus. So things have slowed down, but I don't think that's, Maryland specific. That's obviously universal.
Everybody's going through it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whether it's in the world of wrestling or in the world in general, I mean, things are just different, right? So everyone, the one thing I think we keep talking about as a staff when we meet and stuff is, I mean, everyone's on the same page right now, right? So it's like we're no one's in like training and together as a unit, and kids are working out on their own at home, and we can't monitor much of it and make anything mandatory. But with our guys, we've really hammered that they can finish school strong. They've been given kind of the I guess it's a blessing for some that you can take pass fail, or you can take your letter grade. So you have some flexibility with the way that everything kind of played out. So for us, we're just trying to make the best of the situation as a staff and as a team. Obviously I think we would like to have the time together, but there's no way around it at this point. So just continue to move forward.
First year there.
Yeah. First year. Yep.
Did you guys have some people that qualified that you had to break the bad news to?
Yeah, we did. We had two NCAA qualifiers. One was a senior, so that's rough. A kid that you know, was born and raised in right outside of College Park in Maryland. Kind of a local kid, a kid that's been through a lot of adversity. His name was Jockey Jones. He was our 57-pounder. Had some rocky roads throughout the year and was making a big cut to get down to the weight. And season ends tough, right? So, but plenty of people went through that. Plenty of people with phenomenal careers. Plenty of people with careers that are up and coming like his, and plenty of people that just felt like that was their time to shine. But at the end of the day, again, everyone's going through the same adversity. So that was rough for him. And then we had our 74-pounder qualify as well. Phil Spadafora is his name. Had a really good year. Both those guys had a really good year. Beat a bunch of ranked guys between the two of them. And so there was progress, right? I mean, Maryland qualified one guy last year. That was Yusuf Hamida, who's a two-time All-American. He's a heavyweight. He's a stud. And, with basically the same team, we had some incoming guys that they signed that we kind of inherited, but with, essentially the same team and same guys on the team, we're able to qualify two guys and punch two guys through. So, and one of them was not the returning All-American, right? So for us, I think there was, there's wins. We're not big believers in moral victories, right? I think we're pretty selfish and we're pretty motivated and we want things to change fast, right? But at the end of the day, it's a process. We took over, we knew what we were in for, and it's just getting better each year, each day. I think we preach to the kids, just getting a little bit better. So
yeah, a pretty good location. You're right. As far as being somewhere in the country, man, you can right up the road is Philadelphia, New York, Washington. Right down the road, you got the Carolinas, and probably pretty good, centrally located. Plus, Maryland's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're pretty well connected, right? I mean, it's a good pipeline for a lot of really good wrestling states on the East. So just about capitalizing on some talent, obviously winning some recruiting battles, but Maryland is a place where we can do that. I'm confident in that. I love the school. I love, campus. I love the feel from the athletic department. They've shown a lot of support for us, and we're in the Big Ten, right? So it's prime wrestling country, it's prime wrestling conference, the most elite in the country. And so we have things to sell. There's no question about it. And I think we've been fortunate. We've had, the 2020 class that's incoming next year. We got a late start on, but kind of closed some deals and scavenged up a really good class for taking over late. And then we've started 2021 hot too, with a couple top 100 recruits. So I think progress is on the way. Obviously, again, it takes time, but we're on our way, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And before I get into this stuff, what's it been like going through a Big Ten season after spending all those years in ACC? I feel like ACC wrestling is really showing themselves. How would you compare the wrestling you saw in ACC from what you saw this year going to the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a little bit different. I think so. I've been on every end of the spectrum, I guess, right? So the ACC is where I competed. And then I coached my first 3 years out, and I was in the Southern Conference, which historically qualifies the least amount of guys in the country of any conference. And then this past year I was at the Big Ten tournament, and so I'm texting people like that are important in my life, my dad and my brothers, and some of the guys I coached with in the past. I'm like, I can't believe I'm standing here. I'm looking up at the venue, and Rutgers did an amazing job. The venue was sweet. The layout was amazing. Fans, obviously crazy Jersey people, right? It was a good atmosphere. So to be on that end is really unique, and it's rewarding, right? You look around and it's great, but at the end of the day, it's not just about being there for us. I think that's part of the reason why we were hired and why there was a change that took place. And it's about competing, and it's about being up there, a lot of weights, qualifying a significant amount of guys, and being really competitive in the conference. And so we took our lumps this year. There's no question about it. And the conference is tough, stacked, every dual meet, every weekend. When you get into February and January, it's
being an Ohio kid, I mean, that's probably what you watched, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I grew up and at a school with a lot of guys, Bo Jordan, Isaac Jordan, guys that went, David Taylor, all that went into the Big Ten and competed, and so I guess I could say I was a little bit of an outlier. I went to an ACC school, but for me, my wrestling style coming from St. Paris Graham was I mean, it was pretty physical, and we were hard-nosed kids. And so I think I kind of had that element of me competing in the ACC. But, for me, it's like, it's not a big shock, right? Like, I've been on big scenes and stages for wrestling all throughout my college and high school career. So that's where I want to be. Like, I look around at the venue and with the teams and the coaches and the accolades that are standing around you, and it's like, this is what you aim to be at, right? So for me, this is a great opportunity as a coach. Yeah, right. So it's like one day you don't want to be thinking that. You want to be the guy with the people coming up to you taking selfies. So
that's okay. It's perfectly normal to be human, right?
Right, exactly.
So first, talk about now I've tried to get this guy on. He's got like a middle person, and she said that he was going to come on, and then they were going to do like a virtual camp, and they kind of backed out, and then they didn't come out, and they said they'll call me in the fall. But I've been working on it. Talk about wrestling for the great Jeff Jordan, and what he's meant for you in your life and your career, and how he's helped you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's where it started for me. I think, and long story short, I had two older brothers that wrestled. They went to Oregon State, and when they went to college, they basically told me, coming from Colorado where they were, and they wrestled in high school. That's where we lived originally. And my dad had just got a job in Columbus, and so when the move happened, we had been to camps from Colorado, to Coach Jordan's camps, and my brother said, if you want to be prepared at this level, you should make the sacrifice now, because we feel we're underprepared. And so their recommendation, their wisdom to me was, do it now and be prepared through that system. And that was a scary leap for me as a kid. I was like kind of in on wrestling, kind of not, especially coming from Colorado, where wrestling wasn't as big at the time. And I didn't know, I didn't know if I could hack it. At the time I was like an 8th grade kid, 7th grade kid. And I'm like, geez, that's a big move. I had been to camps and cried when I was a little kid. And so it was intimidating a little bit, but it's so
crazy. You'd think where the USA Center is, that would be like.
Yeah. But so we were not in the Springs. We were right outside of Denver. So a little bit of ways, but Colorado was on the up then. It wasn't what it is now. I think there's some really good kids coming out of Colorado. It's a really good state and as a whole, but it was intimidating, like I said, but I made the move and, made the sacrifice, had some really good friends, some good teammates around me. Like David Taylor was on the Zach Nybert, kids that were all Americans in college were on the upper end. And then below me, it was, Zeke, Isaac Jordan, Bo Jordan, Ryan Taylor, who went to Wisconsin, who was an All-American, Micah Jordan, who was a freshman when I was a senior. Like, it just never ended, So to be ingrained in that, and just to come up with, and especially with Coach Jordan's family as my teammates, right? Like, I just know that because it was his kids and his nephews, it was like everything was so much tighter. And to be a part of that group, it was really special. And for me, that's where everything started. I've been fortunate in my career to be surrounded by plenty of good coaches and good teammates in high school and in college both.
Has he stayed in touch?
Who's that? Coach Jordan? Yeah, I talked to Bo. Was in my wedding. Bo was one of my groomsmen. So we're really good friends. We talk probably, I would say, bi-weekly, if not more than that. So we're close, and Coach Jordan, we've always had a bond, just because I was really good friends with Bo and Isaac. And so we were all just a unit, and so if I call Coach Jordan right now, he'd still call me Babyface like he always did. That was my nickname in high school. So
call him and tell him to come on my show.
All right, I will. I'll try to recruit for you.
Well, what happened is I don't know him, right? And I don't know anybody who knows him. So I went to his camp website and I sent a message, and he's got, I guess, I don't know. I don't want to say a secretary. I don't know what the person does.
Mm-hmm.
That's the person that sets up all his events and shows and camps.
Yeah.
And working on something virtual, but it just didn't come to fruition. So she said, maybe we'll do something in the fall or whatever. But I don't know if she understands, like, I can talk wrestling. We don't have to just talk about a camp. Like, we can talk.
Yeah. Right.
It's cool. Yeah, but I get it. It's all right. So
our inquiries are from left and right from him nowadays too. So
yeah. I know he's busy, but so you were out. Where's Colin Palmer coaching now? I had him on, but isn't he in Columbus? Did he take over one of those big schools as well?
I have no idea, to be honest. He might be coaching a high school. I know obviously he went to St. Ed's and was, rival and for us, big time rival in Ohio. But no, Lance went on to fight and he was in the Bellator and did it big there. And Colin, I'm not sure with Colin. So Lance actually was an assistant coach at Virginia Tech for a year right before I got there. So
Yeah, I know. I had Colin Palmer on. I know he mentioned, I think it might be back at his old alma mater, but
yeah,
when I saw the name St. Paris Graham, and then I was reading, I saw Jeff Jordan retired a couple of years ago, so I wasn't sure if that was where he went or not.
yeah.
All
No,
right,
no,
so
definitely not there. He's the enemy. St. Ed's the enemy.
and he didn't suck either, right?
Yeah, dude wasn't bad. Neither of them were. So
Yeah. And I think we were discussing this a little bit. So now you can tell us why. Why Virginia Tech? What made Virginia Tech the best place for you to wrestle in college? Being a kid from the Midwest, typically would go to one of those Big 10, Big 12, whatever type deals, and you end up in the Southeast.
yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, strange, but I had a connection there. I had two teammates. They're two brothers. The older brother's name was Brian Stevens, and he went to Virginia Tech. And then his brother Matt Stevens, who was my age, we were best friends in high school. He ended up going to Virginia Tech too. So that was the initial connection. And then, I kind of went there and stepped foot on campus, and it's a great place. Like it sells itself when you're on campus there. There's something about just Blacksburg, Virginia. You're driving through the mountains, it kind of pops up, and it's a true college town, right? I mean, there's not a lot of people there when school's out of session. And so for me, that feel, that culture, and a lot of that has to do with athletics. And, the football team, Coach Beamer was there, who's an historic coach, obviously. And it was just kind of this mentality towards athletics there. And you can kind of feel it when you stepped on campus. And a lot of other fellow athletes will tell you similar things of the way that just the community is, kind of revolved around athletics.
The Nordstrom said, they said just when you go to Blacksburg, there's something about it. I'm a Miami Hurricane fan, so
yeah. Oh God, yeah. Right.
Rivalries, so
been many a battles between Miami and
had a pretty damn good baseball team up there too at Virginia Tech. At least they
yeah.
used to. I don't know how they do now, but
yeah, I mean, ACC baseball is good, man. So but so I like the campus a lot. I really love the area. And then from a wrestling perspective, I just had a good feel. There was workout partners ahead of me, guys that were older than me that I knew would mentor me and kind of beat me up a little bit, with Jesse Dong and Pete Yates, who, Pete Yates ended up being a two-time All-American. He's down in Georgia now running a club where he's from. And Jesse Dong he was probably the best non-placer ever in history. He was probably a top 8 seed at the Nationals all 4 years, including his freshman year. So just never made it to the podium, but he was a stud, and he was a 57 pounder. He was older than me. So there was a good group there. And then Devin Carter had just signed. He was the class ahead of me, who I knew was going to be really good. And, I just had a good feel about it. The coaching staff there with Coach Roby, Dresser obviously was at the helm at the time, and I clicked with all of them. And then they ended up bringing in an assistant who was David Hoffman, who coaches at the Hill School now and right outside of Philly. But we coached together at Chattanooga too. So him and I have a bond, but the coaching staff was great. The teammates were great. And I just felt like we were building something, and they really valued what I was going to bring to the program, and what Devin Carter was going to bring, what Jesse Dong, every one of us as individuals, I think were really important, and they carried that through. They have some amazing recruiting classes with guys like Ty Walls, David McFadden, Micaiah Lewis, right? Like the list goes on. The Nordstroms were there. Like, just, it got the ball rolling, and to be a part of something that was building was really exciting to me.
The secret wrestling haven,
Yeah, for sure. There was a ton.
Go Terps.
Who said that?
Kyle.
Yeah, good. As long as he's not saying something about Florida, right? I like when those guys talk about something.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So now let's get into where you are, what you're building. Talk about Maryland wrestling. Talk about the culture you're building there. Talk about how you have made academics important to your athletes and how you focus on that, and whatever else you want to talk about Maryland wrestling.
Yeah, so being in the Big Ten, wrestling is great, but on the other side of it for us, an academic standpoint, Maryland's probably one of the top, usually historically in the past 15 years, like top 10 public school in the country. So it's up there with schools like Virginia has really good academics. And I think that, maybe like in North Carolina where Maryland was an ACC school, right? So it's kind of modeled a little bit similar to a UVA or a UNC, and academics are really good. So that's a huge plus for us. And Coach Clemson and I always talk about what we get. And part of the reason why he took the job, and he always says this, is because the type of individual that you get to coach and to kind of mentor there, the really, really bright kids, right? Like if you're getting into the University of Maryland, academics are priority, you're a bright kid, and it's fun to work with bright kids, right? They buy in, they appreciate what you're saying, they're hungry to learn. And so we get a lot of really, really good students too, which is really, really nice. So from an academic perspective, it's rigorous, right? So that means our kids have plenty of support. Our academic support system is great. We have an advisor just for wrestling, just like a lot of institutions do, but handling the academic rigors of a school like Maryland is pretty important. And so for us, we put a huge value on recruiting a kid that is built to handle not only the wrestling workload, but the academic side of things too. So a lot of great things happening. I think College Park is a really cool town, college town too. Great place to be. And I'm just pumped to be a part of it right now. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And so how do you, what are some of the intangibles you're looking for when you're recruiting kids for your school? And then also, how do you separate, like making sure that I know he's here to wrestle and I need him to wrestle, but also I know he's here for academics and I need him to get good grades?
Yeah, I think, you kind of hit it, right? So some of the intangibles are kids that are able and capable of handling both, right? And I think that's really important when you recruit a kid. Obviously, they're student athletes. There's two parts of it. But at the end of the day, you have to have a kid that's just built to handle whatever comes their way. And a lot of that is hard to just be able to tell if someone has, and so it's about getting to know the kids and building a good relationship throughout recruiting, getting to know their coaches, having relationships with their parents and having, a trustworthy relationship where you can kind of read a kid and get a good feel. Obviously you can look at a piece of paper and see, your transcripts and your test scores say that everything's all good. But if you got a kid that socially likes to go out and has a different focus, then those transcripts and those ACT scores don't line up, right? And so there's twofold with it in terms of academics and athletics. But we talk about there's two areas of life that are really important. There's really three areas when you're in college: socially, academically, and athletically. And if you commit to two, one really falters, right? So if you're willing to commit to your athletics and your academics, your social life's probably going to take a little bit of a hit. But like we were talking about earlier before we got on here, if you want to be average, you do average things, right? So it's hard to make those choices and to kind of commit to academics and athletics instead of socially. But I think at the end of the day, you got the rest of your life for that. So identifying a kid that really kind of fits that is not easy, right? But I think that's why we're in the business that we're in. And part of it is building the relationships and recruiting the right kids that fit your culture. I just like winners, man. I like kids that win, that want to win, right? And if you have that characteristic, you probably want to do that in the classroom and on the wrestling mat. So
yeah, Coach Ayers at Princeton, I don't know if you heard him on here. He said that I try to scare the heck out of the kid when I'm recruiting him to prepare him that, look, this is what it's, you're coming to an academic powerhouse too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially at an Ivy, right? Like dealing with some tough stuff. And so when it comes to academics, so to I don't know, put that lightly for kids is probably not a good thing when they're coming in, right? You don't want to set them up for failure. So we tend to just steer towards, trying to recruit the right kid that is cool with that. And that's a winner, right? In my mind.
All right. This one is a very important question. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, I guess. I'm a little worried. You say it that way.
If you had the first pick in the fantasy football draft, who would you pick right now?
Yikes. Was this a question from Kevin? Who would I take? Who did he take? Did he tell you who he would take?
No, he sent me questions. He's like, hey, this is what I need you to ask him. And he sent me that question.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I'd probably pick better than Kevin, right? Because Kevin's been not good in the past couple. We still have our VT like alumni league that we all play in together. And so
he's trying to find out.
So whenever I pick, I don't know who it is right now. It'll be better than Kevin's pick. That's all I can say.
Yeah, he's trying to find out probably so he can put notes.
Yeah, exactly. He's trying to steal my strategy. I get it.
That's awesome. So what is one of your, I don't know, maybe favorite or most memorable or, I don't know, wrestling experiences, matches, or tournaments that is just the one that's ingrained in your head, or the one that said, man, I can wrestle at this level, or the one that you're like, damn, I lost that match, but shit, that really made me know that I can get to the next level. You know, what's one of those memories you have from being an athlete prior to coaching?
I think it was probably, obviously one of the more memorable ones is going to be your senior year at the NCAA tournament. And that was a good cap for me, which was great in New York City, which was really cool. But I think when I look back on, kind of like in general, like especially early in my career, an event that was that resonates with me the most would be the Midlands. My sophomore year, I hadn't redshirted yet. It was my second year at 49. And I think there were some matches early in the year where I had won and beaten some good ranked kids, and I was starting to kind of like get into this mode where I was like, I can compete at this level kind of day in and day out, and I'm making some noise, and I was pretty pumped about it. And I went to the Midlands, and I ended up winning the tournament. I beat a bunch of really good guys. I beat Montel Marion, his first year out of school from Iowa, who was in the national finals. And obviously Midlands is an open event, so you can come back and wrestle. So he was 1 or 2 years, I think, out of school and still training, and he entered, and he was on my side of the bracket. So I wrestled him in the semis, and then I beat Donnie Vincent in the finals at the Midlands. And I think when I look back, and I still remember being asked, by my coaches, and they were evaluating your wrestling, like, where do you think you were at your peak? Like, what do you think you were doing, and where did you feel the best? And we were trying to like mimic that, and peak at the right times. And I always went back to that tournament and thought that I was just dialed in, focused. It was one of the best tournaments I think I strung together in my career, basically. And so for me, that's always the tournament I looked to. I don't even know what year it was now. It was my sophomore.
It's amazing when I ask that question to somebody where you're at, like, kind of, you're not even like a NATO he's not in college anymore. He's training for like the Worlds or whatever. But I asked him, and it was a match his freshman year. He wrestled a 2-time NCAA champ who was a senior or something at the time, and he beat him. And he was like, oh shit, yeah, I think
this is where I'm at. Yeah.
Where I'm at, And
I think a lot of guys that have a lot of success in their career kind of are able to find that out early with some significant wins. So that doesn't surprise me, right? And I think that I had some significant wins, but was a little bit like still teetering, like, am I here? Am I not? Am I here? And then finally I put that tournament together, and it was a bunch of really good dudes throughout the whole tournament. And I was like, this is pretty consistent, like the facts are lining up here. So you're going to have to step your game up. So that was kind of the first year that I really, in the tournament, I think that I was really like, this is it, And so it was obviously December, right after Christmas break of my sophomore year, that it kind of clicked. And I think guys with really good, you see 3-time, 4-time All-American, there's always some early success that kind of pivots their career towards that direction, right? In the positive direction. So
that's awesome, man. So one more thing before we get into the questions. What would you, something that I've been wanting to ask guys, and I think you may be the first one, but
guinea pig.
Yeah, no, I hear a lot from you guys that, man, I was all world in high school. I was a 2 or 3-time state champ. I was an All-American. And then I think I'm just going to walk into college and kill people. And the transition from, what do you tell kids that are state champs, that are studs, that are going into college, or even high school kids that are even right underneath the All-Americans. They're good enough to get there. They're good enough to be there, and they may end up great. What do you tell them about that transition? Because from what I'm hearing, it's like you go from being like top dog to like you're just another person in the room, right?
Yeah, I think
all these young kids that are making that transition.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'll say is if you're expecting that transition to happen on its own, you're in for a rude awakening. I think I expected that the first couple months I was on campus. You know, like especially coming from a school like St. Paris Graham, and I had been at the high level events. It was an Ohio State champ. I'm like, this is going to be, I'm going to have some rough days, but I'll be fine. Like I'll figure it out pretty quick. Right. Like that wasn't the case for me. It took a long time for me to kind of, especially just in the way that you train in college, and the way there's just a lot of stress on what you do on the mat. There's a lot of stress on what you do academically. And, and so you're by yourself, you're cooking your food, you're doing your laundry. Like there's a lot of learning lessons your freshman year. Right. And it's not just about wrestling. So time management, like you're all these things start to add up. And I think at one point I was like, my focus wasn't even on the wrestling. Sometimes I was trying to figure out everything else. And so the wrestling part kind of came natural. I was just in the room and learned how to grind at Graham and kind of figured it out. But at some point I figured like this has got to change. Like, I feel like I'm just going through the motions and a little bit, and so.
A lot of ramen noodles.
Yeah. Right. It was just like, there were some interesting things going on in the dorms, and like, it's a lot, right? You got to figure stuff out on your own and being away from mom and dad for a little bit. So if you expect the transition to happen on its own, probably not the right assumption, right? I mean, there's plenty of work and then there was a time, especially I went to the national tournament my freshman year. I had kind of a weird first year. I got hurt and was out for a while. Came back, wrestled at the national tournament and went 1-2. And it was the first time I hadn't placed in a tournament since I was like, 10 years old or something. So it was like, that took a lot out of me for a while. It kind of ate at me. And I think that's what really kind of propelled I could say probably that I went through my first year just expecting the transition to happen. And it never really did. I went to the national tournament and I was exposed a little bit. So after that, I think I kind of bought into like, this is going to take some hard ass work. And so I'm going to have to put everything into this, and for it to kind of, not for it to unravel itself, but for me to kind of start unraveling it and picking strings out and figuring things out. So,
yeah, I mean, because I grew up around a lot of like basketball guys and football guys, and they would tell me, especially the basketball guys, because football, there's like 52 people on a team or 100 or whatever. So, but even in that case, like in basketball, they would tell me that, man, I was a McDonald's All-American in high school. And then I got to college and all 12 kids were McDonald's All-Americans.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're looking around the room and no one cares if you're a state champ. Like everyone is, right? So
yeah, like, that's what I hear. Like you walk in and you're like, yeah, I'm a state champ. Like, yeah, I did it twice. I did it 3 times. I did it once. I did it 4 times. So what? Right? Get on the mat. Let's go.
And even the ones that like are from a state where you're like, it's not as good or whatever. If they're older than you too, especially, and they got some years of experience, like it's still rough. Those guys are just, they don't give a shit at that point. It's, it's
your old school is getting a really good kid over in Chattanooga.
Yeah. Noah Castillo.
Yeah, man. I had him on Friday, I think it was Thursday. Or
yeah.
Friday.
I saw you had him on. Yeah.
And you had another kid over there and that's what kind of got him over there was
Logan Andrew. Yeah. I recruited Logan.
Yeah. He's not bad either, huh?
Yeah, he's a big old dude too, man. I remember him and his dad came on our visit and he was talking about, what weight we saw him at. And I'm like, obviously he's a full-size 97-pounder and we'll see what happens from there. And I look back at like pictures of him now that they're posted and I'm like, he's not a 97-pounder anymore, huh?
I asked Noah about picking Tennessee Chattanooga. He said, well, first of all, they stuck with me. They've been looking at me for a while and they kind of never backed away from me, even through bad times. And then he said, if I go to a big school and win a national championship, like, so what? Everybody's done that, right? Somebody's done that before me. He said, but if I win one at Tennessee Chattanooga, people would be like, damn, he just won one at a smaller school. Yeah. Not that he won, but it's not, like you said earlier, it's not a school that is Big Ten or whatever. So Plus, why wouldn't you want to be in Chattanooga, Tennessee? From what I understand, Tennessee's a pretty cool town.
Yeah, Chattanooga's, I mean, one of the coolest towns. My wife loves it. She still to this day kind of despises me for.
You may be back one day, right? You never know.
Yeah, that's what we talk about all the time. We're like, we'll retire in Chattanooga. So that's kind of the deal that I made with her when we took the job up here. So
You'll be back.
yeah, it's a cool town and good for Noah. I think that's a cool mindset, right? So really cool town.
And he's somebody you watch wrestle, and he's so unassuming. Like you watch him wrestle, and he won. You're like, yeah, oh,
yeah, yeah.
And it goes through the motions, and the motions work.
Yeah.
Well, I had 10 of these questions for you, but now I have 12 because your buddy sent me 2.
Oh God. Okay.
All right. So Qdoba, I'll go his 2 first. Right. Qdoba or Chipotle?
Chipotle, hands down, easy.
Mario Kart, Super Smash Bros.
Super Smash Bros. That was our game. Still to this day, when we all get back together, we're playing Super Smash. That's no question. Devin Carter, who's national finalist, he was a roommate of mine for 2 years too in college, and he lives up in the area too. He works in right outside of DC, and I'll still get texts from him. He's like, "You want to play Super Smash tonight?" And I'm like, yeah, with my wife, dude. Like, we're not in college anymore, you know. He's like, "All right, well, just let me know." So
I'll bring the beer. Mikados or lefties?
It's McAdoo's, but
sorry, I think the Nordstrom's fixed.
It's a Nordstrom question. Yeah, I choose McAdoo's probably.
They chose lefties.
Yeah, that's where McAdoo's is where I saw my wife on TV for the first time. I didn't even know her, but the women, she played soccer, and that's where we watched their Final Four game. The women's team was in the Final Four, and they played Florida State.
No, that was mine. The only two that came from him. Well, 3 came from him. The draft, and then the Qdoba, and the Mario Kart. So
yeah, I could have told you which questions were his.
What I started to do last week was create most of my 10 questions around kind of where you've been in life.
Yeah. Because
I was getting kind of monotonous with the same 10 questions. Yeah. So I was like, how can I kind of change this up a little bit? So it takes me a little more time to have to like I had a cool girl on from Australia.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
I'm gonna have to find out some stuff about Australia.
Yeah, I was throwing out these fruits. She's like, "Oh, Mike, you really did something. We're gonna research it." I'm like, "Yeah, I tried." All right, so we went Mikados and Mikado, whatever it's called, McAdoo's, and that's
there you go.
Yeah. Your wife. Secretly, you probably like lefties better, but we won't talk about it. All right,
that's the answer I'm supposed to say. It's McAdoo's.
Yeah. Virginia barbecue or Tennessee barbecue?
I didn't eat a lot of barbecue in Virginia because I was cutting a lot of weight. In Tennessee, I got to enjoy it a little more. So I think by default, I choose Tennessee. But I think the more south you get, probably the better it gets too. So,
yeah. Jeff Jordan or Jim Jordan?
Not doing that. Yeah, I don't know if I could do that.
They may drive down and wrestle you yourself.
Yeah, neither. Yeah. So they were both around. Obviously, Jim was around all the time with Isaac, and so I'm staying away from that. Yeah, I like both families a lot. So both sides are great.
They seem pretty tight, except when it comes to politics.
Yeah. They also, Bo and Zeke wrestled all the time in college, so that was kind of awkward. But
all right, so Florida stone crabs or Maryland blue crabs?
I don't like blue crabs. I'll be honest, and I think that's probably like blasphemy to say as a term.
You're gonna have to learn.
I'm more of a my father-in-law cooks. I live in their basement right now, but he cooks crab all the time, and it's usually always king crab. So I mean, it's like I like that. We've had blue crab a couple times. It's just too much work, too much work and too little meat. So
when my wife was in school in Philly, and I was in the car business. We drove down to Baltimore, Maryland, and we did the whole or whatever in the ESPN zone and the aquarium. And then we would always look up, we didn't have money then, right? So we'd look up stuff, and we found this place down all the way by the old General Motors quarters.
Yeah.
We went in there and they threw paper down and they came out with a big thing of blue crab and just threw it up.
They slap them on the table. Yeah. And there's like potatoes and carrots sitting there too. And
It was a lot of work.
yeah, a ton of work.
High school scoring or college scoring?
College for sure. For sure. High
What
school
do you find?
suck too. They just, I mean, they should make it kind of universal and keep the rules consistent. And I mean, riding time, everything. You might as well do it in high school. So I'm all for college rules, definitely. Minus the stalling. They need to take the out of bounds stalling out. And that's a terrible rule, but different subject. I can go on all day about that.
Yeah, I bet. What do you find guys in your sport cherish more, an Olympic medal or a national championship?
That one's tough. I think I would probably say national championships. Not that an Olympic medal isn't prestigious, because obviously I think it's the epitome of what we're trying to do. But I think if you look at it more realistically, there's more chances for an NCAA title for a lot of kids that are competing at this level, right? And so I think for that, I also think that it's a stepping stone, right? So that if you get the one initially, you're probably more likely to get another, right? Which is the Olympic medal. So I think at the end of the day, like it all kind of starts here. There are some people that do it uniquely, like Henry Cejudo, but he went the other route first because he was that capable and won an Olympic medal first, and now is winning UFC titles. And then afterwards, he's talking about there's nothing greater than the sport of wrestling. So I think that kind of proves to you that it's.
Are you trying to recruit him since he still has 4 years of eligibility?
Yeah. If that were the case, he'd be paying for his own scholarship, though. I think he's got that to give. So
you think he could walk right back into college wrestling and just be?
I don't know. There was some talk on Twitter about him going back to the trials, but there's a couple interesting things. I think Henry's.
What weight would he be in college?
In college, he'd probably be 33. I don't know that. So the Olympics, they were talking about, like, if Henry came back and went to the trials, like, how would he do? Because there's been speculation that he could be doing that or whatever. And I have a really good friend. I coached a buddy I coached with down at Chattanooga. His name's Hunter Gamble, and he's very, very involved on Twitter. So he brought up a couple good points that, having Henry make weight at 21, or 25 now, but he wrestled 21 when he was in the Olympics on a one-day weigh-in, because it's not the same that it used to be. With the day before, it's interesting, and then you go up a weight, and there's some hammers with Yanni and guys like that. So
yeah, so if he stays in the 20s, I'd love to see him and Spencer Lee, right? But if he goes up to the 30s,
I don't know.
Right? It's going to be
Spencer's a stud, and God, there's some other really good guys in Gilman at the weight. It's like, I don't know. It'd be really interesting. It'd be cool, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. It's a long shot, but it's cool.
Those guys got to be licking their chops, like just a chance to wrestle him. I'm sure Lee and Yanni would be up to it,
Oh yeah, they'd love it.
All right, Blacksburg or Chattanooga?
I don't know, man. I choose. If I could choose both, I probably would. What's
two good towns, huh?
They are. I mean, Chattanooga. The one thing I'll say is, I think at the time, the where I was at in life, Blacksburg was the best place, and where I was at in life as a coach, Chattanooga was the best place. Because there's just more to do in Chattanooga, and you can enjoy it a little more when you're older and you're not competing as much. And when I was in college, I wanted a true college feel, and that's Blacksburg, like to a T. They don't
require the coaches to cut weight. So
yeah, exactly. So I was out eating
restaurants and the breweries.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of good. I'm an outdoorsy. My wife and I, we like to go out and hike and stuff, and so Chattanooga is a great place for that. And the area around Blacksburg is great with the AT and some of the hikes there.
I should have asked you that question. I asked. Here we'll go back to Kyle.
All right.
I asked him this one: tubing the New River Junction or biking the Huckleberry Trail?
Tubing. Tubing's a lot less work, that's for sure. So
he said you guys had to. They all said the same thing, and for one reason only: Man, Coach ran us all the time.
The Huckleberry was the worst. I mean, Dresser loved the Huckleberry. Like, and we used to joke, like, this dude's got no creativity. Like, how is he a head coach? Because it was just the same day, the same path every day was on the Huckleberry. That was his run. I mean, like, we all knew it when Dresser was running the conditioning that week or whatever. We were on the Huckleberry. So we were fortunate when the other coaches got to step in and they would throw some random workouts at us, and we'd be on like a soccer field and doing different like sprints. We'd be like, thank God we're off the Huckleberry. So,
Kevin said he's trash at Super Smash.
yeah. he plays with like Mario and Jigglypuff, two worst characters.
My kid
plenty of learning to do. He'll deny that, but he can't play good with anyone else. So I mean,
yeah, my kids crush me, and they'll tell me if I go to play with them, they'll tell me, "Oh yeah, take this guy and put him on this bike," and then they're
yeah,
and they're just going by me.
Yeah, Kevin's Jigglypuff. We'll just call him Jigglypuff.
That's funny. All right, what do you think? I guess I'll just say Fargo or 32.
I think Super 32. I think Super 32 is a good test, especially when you're recruiting. I think you look at just the quality and the quantity at Super 32. It's obviously folk style, which helps gauge a little bit better. But I think that it really mimics. I was actually just really strange that you asked this question, because I was looking back at results and just doing some recruiting or whatever, and I'm looking at brackets at Super 32, and I'm like, if you can make it onto the podium at Super 32, especially at those like middle weights there in high school where they're really thick, it's like you have something there for sure. And it might just be talent. It might not be the toughness and the academic side, that we talk about. But when you look at it from a wrestling perspective, if you're able to place at Super 32, especially now, it's pretty hard to do. So I like that it's like a mini national tournament, like the NCAA's is for high school kids. Obviously it's at a different time. It's still preseason when everyone's still getting into it, but I think the ones that take it really seriously, it's a really good event. And the ones that, even if they don't place and come back the next year and they do really well, I think that proves, especially from a recruiting standpoint, that, I mean, you have something there, especially that can be translated to this level.
Yeah, I had, excuse me, I had Brettley Rain on.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, so he went into the off season, and then he hit the grappler and he won the grappler. But then on his way home with his dad, he was like, I won, but I just don't feel right. Like, I really need to make some changes. Like, here's a guy but he, you know yourself, I guess. And then he decided to go up. I think he went up a weight. And his dad was questioning his decision. But even though his dad's an amazing coach, Coach Duck, he's like, I've got to be dad here. And I'm kind of trying to let him make his own decision. But Brettley said, winning that tournament changed my recruiting life. Like, as soon as I won that tournament, obviously I was already a 3-time state placer. He said, I've kind of done some things I'm supposed to do. But when I won that tournament, it was like the floodgates opened. Yeah.
I wouldn't argue that at all. I think that there's a lot of stress on Super 32. I just think it proves you kind of have the whole package. I mean, especially from a folk style perspective, and just being able to get through the grind, lots of tough matches, lots of long days, right? Like big bracket.
It's cool to get that belt.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a cool event, and they've done a really good job with it. I only competed at it once when I was in high school, but I loved it. I thought it was great. Although it was one day back in the day when I did it. It was on one day, and it was brutal then. And period switched to 1-1-1 on the backside, so it was kind of messy until they branched out to the 2-day format. Yeah.
I have not been blessed to experience it yet. I did let Daniel do the Super 32 qualifier down here last year.
Yeah.
Just to go get his ass kicked a little bit and experience it.
Yeah.
And it was good for him because, he went 0-30, 7th and 8th grade. We found wrestling. He was 12, young for 7th grade. There was a program that had only started a year or two before, and at his school. And so he never really had middle school wrestling or youth wrestling. He never ever got to wrestle anybody his own age. So he went 0-30, 7th and 8th grade. And somebody told me, hey, you should really put him in off-season wrestling. And I'm like, what the hell's that, right? His coaches are telling me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what's that mean? And so I start researching like tournaments locally or whatever, and I find one, and then that's how I started to discover, wow, this wrestling family is pretty dope, right? So
You're like, dang, all these crazy wrestling a-holes are wrestling all the time, not just in the winter. This is not what I expected.
yeah, and I walk in and people are like, hey, what club are you in? I'm like, what's a club, right? Like, so then whatever. So then we start going to some AAU. We hit some AAU stuff, and he got to feel what it was like to get still not a high school level win. So, but he was getting a win and getting killed still. And then we went to, I heard about this Rumble at CFWA.
Yeah.
We walked into the Rumble, and you walk in and I see his eyes are like this big. He's looking, there's, Busakis and Danny Nini and Castillo and the twins and the kids, state champs and qualifiers from all over the state. And then he's looking around and you've got NATO's in the room, just rolling around with guys. And he's like, holy moly. So I'm in there. And next thing you know, I signed him up for the club, and he went to Disney with them. And I think Disney really helped him a lot, because the best thing I thought, have you ever experienced the Disney duels?
I have never been, actually. Never competed or seen it as a coach either. So
what I think is really good, if at the youth level, if you ever bring a team down there, in the back room, they just let the kids wrestle. So they all line up in weight classes, and you just line up, and there's a ref there, and there's guys working the book.
And just all like exhibition matches?
Yeah. So he probably got, I'm telling you, 20 or 30 matches that week, just exhibition himself. So that kind of, with kids from Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Ohio and North Dakota, all the North Dakota kids looked like they ate a cow before they showed up.
They did. That's the thing.
Huge. Like, I'm like, how's that a 125? And they're like, well, that's the scales in North Dakota. I'm like, that kid is enormous, right?
Yeah.
I remember the first kid that he wrestled from Pennsylvania. He got on the line, and as soon as the whistle blew, the kid blasted him so hard he flew off the mat. And it was like, oh wow! But that experience meant a lot, right? And then we got to go to Michigan Grappler. We got to experience that. So then we get to the first tournament of the year in high school, and he gets his first win, and he places fourth. And it was cool. Like, I was crying. It was just emotional, right? Just to see him, how hard he worked to get that first win in high school. And then he left me, and come to find out, like 2 days later, he told me, Dad, I went to the locker room and I cried for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He said, so the feeling of getting that win was just incredible.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have wanted him to go through wrestling any other way. Like, I've talked to coaches, and I hear people say about the youth and stuff. And yeah, I agree. Like, if you have a youth kid that's 7 and you want to put him, that's fine. But I think what's made him the man he is today at 14, or he'll be 15 in a couple months, is just getting his ass kicked for 2 years, because now he appreciates every win.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about our sport, right? Like, I think about it today. Like, we said it before we got on, I think we were talking, it's like, if, let's say, this COVID thing has a huge impact on what, college wrestling and the landscape of athletics looks like right now, and things change, and God forbid we lose programs or whatever, and I'm one of them, my wife's like, well, what would you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'd do something. I have an accounting degree, I have an MBA. And so I got that at Chattanooga, and I got a good degree when I was in school. Like, I'll be fine. She's like, yeah, but like, how would you handle not having wrestling? And that part would be rough. But I think at the end of the day, I just feel prepared, right? Like, whatever came my way, and the adversity that I saw, whether it's in life or in, actual athletics, collegiate athletics as a coach or like, I just feel as if I'm prepared better than the average individual because of our sport. Right. And I think it's because of lessons like that, with your son. And it's like, it's never going to be easy, I don't think, in our sport. And if you expect it to be easy, you're in the kind of the wrong mindset. So
wild too. Yeah.
And the lessons that you learn, just that you can apply to everything else, it's insane. I tease my wife, like, I'm like, our kids won't wrestle. Like, it was too much stress for my parents, and I saw them or whatever. And she's like, yeah, right. Like, She doesn't want our boys to be in any other sport. She's like, how would they learn to like carry themselves, like how would they learn to go through tough things? And she's a soccer girl growing up, and she's like, no way they're playing soccer. So you can pick another sport. It better be wrestling, but
yeah. But to make it to college and even for her to be a D1 athlete in anything, swimming, bowling.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, I don't think
have a mindset to get there. Right. But
I don't think it has to be.
And then wrestling humbles you. Like he goes in, he gets that tournament, he gets 4th place. He's on cloud 9. The next tournament, he goes 0-6 and gets just demolished. Right. And he's like, what the heck happened? Like, I thought I was going in the right direction.
Yeah. The one thing about wrestling too, right, is like when a loss comes your way or whatever the adversity you face on the mat, like it's you, right? And it's intimate. It's one dude, imposing their will on another dude or female and female, if that's the case. But like, that's just part of it. That's part of the learning lesson, right? Like you don't really get that in team sports. Like when you're on a soccer team or, and I think like swimming is a similar sport of gymnastics, right? Is probably comparable for wrestling. And a lot of stress is on the one individual, right? And so I think that's why lessons I don't think they're any different, but I think that they at least get, like exponentially greater. You experience it greater in a sport like wrestling because it's just you, right? And you deal with all that yourself.
But it's like, life's not easy. I'm 44 now, right? Well, I'll be 44 in 21 days or something. But life's not easy. You're going to have situations in life where it's not fair. What just happened to you shouldn't have happened. You deserved the job over the other guy. You were more qualified. But, just everything. Life is unfair, and you're going to get hit with shit where you go, wow, that was bullshit, right? But I think with wrestling, I see with my kid the confidence that it's created for him, where that getting off the mat mentality, like, man, I got to get off the mat, is incredible. And I think, and then the confidence, like he was a 12-year-old kid. I got to imagine he was shitting himself walking into a high school, and there's an 18-year-old black kid on the other side of the mat that's just jacked. Yeah. And he's like, I got to imagine he was like, holy shit, I got to fight that kid. Yeah. And then he goes and does it. And I think that's like, okay, another notch on my belt. Wow. I did that. And that kid was amazing. He picked Daniel up after he pinned him in 8 seconds and told him, pat him on the ass, keep going. Yeah. Right. I remember he faced Ryan Chauvin. Yeah. First ever district tournament that he's in. Here he is, 12 years old. Chauvin grabs him by his ankles like the first 8 seconds and just like holds him there. Yeah. And then like pats him on the ass and he leaves. But but those experiences gave him, like, he's not afraid to get out there now, or he's not afraid in life, or somebody's not going to tell him, hey, you're this person when you're not, because he knows who he's found himself. And I think that's what happens with kids in this sport. They find themselves, they gain their confidence. They realize, okay, I've been beat up by guys way bigger than you. Like, I can handle this, Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the life lessons I think that you can apply just from the sport of wrestling, it's more than a lot of other sports. So I think that's really the connection for me and why ultimately I stuck with it. I had a bunch of injuries in my career all throughout college. And I think part of why I chose to stay in and coach wrestling was because of how much I felt that I grew and I learned from the sport. And I think that being a coach and you're mentoring, you're outlining that for kids to come, and so I want people to feel the way that I felt when I was done. And like, I have to give back to the sport. Like, I want to be a part of it because of how much it did for me, so to be able to pass that on and hope that you have an impact on the kids, that it's that meaningful to them. That's the ultimate.
And you've got the ears, you got the badge of honor. Like I asked.
No one can take that away from me, right?
I asked Carissa Holland from Australia. I'm like, headgear or no headgear? She's like, well, man, I like the collies, man. And the collies say they're like badge of honor,
Yeah.
I can kick your ass, mate.
I had an Iranian professor in college for one of my finance classes, and he loved wrestling, and obviously he saw the ears and he knew what it was all about. But I had a good buddy that was an accounting major with me that was he's just always wore his headgear. He was kind of a prima donna. And so we called him Cammy. His name was Cam. We called him Cammy because he was just a little girl about his ears and everything. And so we ran into the professor one day. I don't know what we were doing. We were out like a restaurant or whatever, and he was teasing my buddy Cam. He's like, "What happened? What happened to your ears? You have no badge of honor." So he was all about it. It was funny.
That's awesome. Well, I got two more of these. This one is a dessert, right? So do you go Smith Island cake, which apparently is Maryland's dessert of choice? Maybe you know that yet or don't know that.
Yeah.
Or Buckeyes.
Buckeyes. I haven't had the Smith Island cake, but I wouldn't choose it had I had it. I'm a huge peanut butter guy. Buckeyes, obviously home state there, and my mom will still send me like Buckeyes in the mail. Like that's not a joke either. Like I just couple months ago, she sent us frozen ones too that she got at an ice cream shop. So
that's awesome.
Nothing's beating peanut butter for me. Never.
Are you a Browns guy or a Bengals guy?
Neither. Eagles.
I'm an Eagles fan.
Are you really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
So my grandma was from Philadelphia, but raised us in Miami. So she raised us on the Eagles and the Dolphins.
Gotcha.
But
yeah.
How I grew up, and love the Eagles.
Makes sense. My parents were the same way. I was born in Philly, spent the first 3 years of my life, which I remember nothing, obviously, but growing up in a household full, my parents were born and raised outside of Philly, and they went to Ben Salem High School. So they, it's like I just knew Eagles and Flyers and Phillies, so
that was what I knew too. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, here's the last one.
All right.
Who kicks whose ass, Kevin or Kyle?
Kevin kicks Kyle's ass for sure. I wouldn't be a good guest to have on here if I lied to you, right? So
yeah.
No, they obviously.
Kyle says if we were both in our prime.
Yeah.
But even though you're bigger than me, I don't know.
That's like Kevin saying he's beat me in Super Smash, and we know that ain't happening. So
yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been awesome. How do I get one of those fancy Maryland wrestling shirts?
Text me your address when we get off here, and I'll hook it up. So
I got to tell Kevin.
I got to get back into the building first, though.
One of those VT.
Nah, you can stick with some.
Yeah. That's what Sentis at Campbell too. He's like, hey, I see you're getting stuff, but you're a Campbell fan. And I'm like, is that what I am now? He goes, yes. I was wearing like the App State stuff that I got from Ryan.
Oh yeah, that's rough. Wearing App State when did you interview Scotty with an App State hat on?
I don't know if I did or not. I maybe.
Hopefully you did.
But I said, I don't have a Campbell hat yet, so I can't wear it for you.
Yeah, I'll hook it up for sure. So.
Yeah, Joey Norton sent me Fear the Bird over at
nice.
Where's he at? North Central.
Yeah.
I feel like, listen to me, like I'm like, damn, I'm in this game. Like I got this
connected, huh? Yeah.
Like I know some people now.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how well, but they keep in touch, man. They ask me how I'm doing. They send me messages. I'm like, man, this family's dope.
Wrestling community is cool. It's tight knit, it's small, and I think people care and are pretty, they're pretty upfront and direct and just genuine. So I think it's a cool, environment to be a part of. So
yeah, it's been fun doing this, man. It's been really fun. I'll tag you. Are you on Ward Wrestling Live?
I don't know.
Well, I've got a page, Ward Wrestling Live. You'll see it.
Oh yeah. I think I saw. I thought you said Ward.
Oh, yeah. It's so the interview is on there.
Yeah, I've seen all you. I went back and watched a bunch when Kevin sent me your contact information.
Oh, yeah, and I'll tag you, and then I'll when I put it onto YouTube, I'll send you the link.
Okay, cool. That'd be sweet.
And then are you on the gram? Is that how they do it? IG dog?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm not on TikTok. Too old for that, but I know what it is. But
I haven't figured out. I do look at TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure some stuff out. Like I posted something like follow me. Like I did hashtag wrestling and I got like 300 looks, but I don't know.
You're speaking a different language even than
Yeah,
me.
like apparently I'm supposed to
It's
get
like
like
a different
small
planet.
clips.
Can't get it figured out. So
Yeah. I don't know how people get like
plus,
you can just
I
take
was sick of seeing people dance. That's all it is. People dancing.
yeah. I don't look good in yoga pants, so I can't do it.
I have no rhythm, so I'm not making it on TikTok.
Yeah. Well,
I like
between
it
rhythm
and follow a bunch of wrestling stuff. There's not as much.
between rhythm and yoga pants, I'm really bad. So that's all right. Hey, man, this has been great. I'm so happy I got a chance to meet you. I appreciate
you having me on, man. There's been obviously you got a bunch of great guests on here besides the two Nordstrom brothers, but they get a pass. I guess they're from Florida, right? So.
And it's been fun, man. Big personality.
Yeah.
Coming on. It's definitely better when the person you're talking to is outgoing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I do get some guys.
I know what it's like too. I'm on the other end recruiting kids, and sometimes when you're talking to a wall, it's rough. But
some of them are reserved. They're like assassins with their like. I had a couple kids on the other day, and the one is like he's an assassin, but he's just quiet. He's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, how was who was it? It was Danny Martinez, and he's just a machine. He's incredible. But I'm like, hey, the knockout was strong, right? Those Georgia kids are tough, right? He's like, I pinned mine in 30 seconds. I'm like, oh, okay. Next question. Yeah. Okay. Never mind then.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, that's it. Just beat everybody. Okay. See you later. All right, man. Take it easy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, man. Best of luck and everything. We'll stay.
And anybody you want to send them my link, feel free.
Yeah, for sure. I will. Spread the word. See you, man.
See you, buddy.